Welcome, deep divers. Today we're plunging into the fascinating and often really debated story of Empress Dowager Cixi.
Yeah, quite a figure.
Totally. I mean, imagine someone ruling this vast empire for nearly half a century.
Right.
But her legacy, it's still intensely contested, pulled between these labels like Wicked Witch of the East on one hand
Hmm.
and the concubine who launched modern China on the other. It's quite the contrast.
It really is. And one of our sources nails it, saying history can be a slippery substance, particularly when it comes to personalities.
Especially when it's, quote, veiled by varying versions of the truth. So true.
Definitely.
So, our mission today in this deep dive is basically to unpack these conflicting narratives. We'll explore the sources you shared about her.
And it's remarkable how she came to dominate the Qing Empire, from 1861 right up to her death in 1908.
A really tumultuous time for China.
Absolutely. And the real challenge, I think, what makes her story just so compelling, is figuring out how these wildly different views of her rule could even exist side by side.
Yeah, what does that tell us? About power, maybe about gender?
And about how history itself gets written
Mm-hmm.
and rewritten.
Okay, so let's unpack it from the very start. Cixi's ascent.
Right.
She was born Yehenara, November 29th, 1835. A Manchu family, but not the highest rank or anything.
No, not top tier.
And at just 16, she enters the Forbidden City.
Yeah.
As a concubine, 5th rank. Like,
Yeah.
the lowest possible.
Sounds pretty low, yeah.
Yeah.
But, for women of her background back then, this was still considered a pretty swank role, a path to some kind of status.
Foot in the door.
Exactly. And her rise within the harem, it was almost unheard of, super rapid.
How so?
Well, in 1856, she gave birth to Emperor Xianfeng's only surviving son, Zaichun.
Ah, the heir.
The only surviving heir. That one event, basically winning the biological lottery, just catapulted her status. That's when she got the title Cixi or Cixi.
And here's something really pivotal, right? A key skill that set her apart.
Yes.
Unlike pretty much all the other Manchu women in the imperial household, she could read and write Chinese. How much leverage did that give her in that kind of court?
Oh, immense leverage. Almost unparalleled, really. Our sources are clear on this.
Okay.
This ability meant she could help the ailing Emperor Xianfeng. She had read the palace memorials for him, essentially all the official documents, policy stuff,
Wow.
and then relay his instructions. So just imagine the insight she gained into state affairs, court politics, the whole workings of the empire.
That wasn't just like a personal skill then.
Not at all. It was basically a political tool in the making. A huge advantage.
So, armed with this unique insight, Emperor Xianfeng dies in 1861. Her son, just 5 years old, becomes the Tongzhi Emperor.
Right. And Cixi gets elevated. She becomes Empress Dowager Cixi, the West Empress Dowager.
Sharing power technically with Xianfeng's main widow, Empress Dowager Qing, the East Empress Dowager.
Exactly. But the situation was still incredibly dicey, politically speaking.
Because the late emperor had appointed those 8 regent ministers, led by Sushun.
Precisely. They were supposed to guide the young emperor, which was, a direct challenge to Cixi and Sisyan's influence.
So how do you consolidate power then, when you're sharing it, and there's this powerful council in your way?
Well, Cixi showed she was an incredibly shrewd political player. Right away, she started conspiring with powerful relatives like Prince Gong and Prince Chun.
Okay.
And crucially, she formed an alliance with Sisyan. They'd apparently been close since Cixi first arrived.
And this alliance led to the Xinyu coup in 1861.
That's the one. Cixi and her allies basically orchestrated the removal of those regions very swiftly.
How they managed that?
They got back to Beijing ahead of the emperor's funeral procession, and the regions were dismissed officially for incompetent negotiations with foreigners. It was audacious, decisive.
Wow.
And this coup, it really highlights her strategic thinking. It wasn't just about grabbing power, it was about legitimizing it too.
How's
Well, she needed to project this image of, high moral standards, even while breaking tradition. So she only executed 3 of the 8 regents. Sushun was beheaded, 2 others allowed to hang themselves.
only 3?
Yeah, and crucially, she refused to execute their families, which is a big break from Qing custom. And then, by stepping into the role of regent herself, alongside Siren, she just shattered that deeply held tradition that women shouldn't be involved in politics at that level.
She became the only Empress Dowager to actually rule as regent.
Exactly. Rolling from behind the curtains, as they say.
So what did this new setup look like? Her initial moves as the de facto ruler?
Well, she rewarded her allies, like Prince Gong, and she changed the emperor's regnal title to Tongzhi, collective stability, symbolic, of course. But while she was clearly the main decision-maker, she did still rely on the Grand Council. Her official role was mostly applying her seals to edicts.
But the empire she was now effectively leading, it wasn't exactly stable, was it?
Oh, not at all. China was reeling. You had the aftermath of the Second Opium War, the huge Taiping rebellions still raging internally.
Massive internal threat.
Huge. And widespread corruption was just endemic in the bureaucracy. She was facing crises on multiple fronts.
He didn't seem to shy away from it, though. The sources mention her tackling that corruption pretty head-on.
Yeah, she held personal audiences with governors and even executed a couple of high-profile corrupt officials, like Qing and He Jing, made examples of them.
Setting a tone.
Definitely. And she also supported these significant reforms, part of what's called the Tongzhi Restoration, trying to strengthen China through modernization.
Like what kinds of things?
Developing the Zhongliamen, that was basically China's first official foreign ministry. Restoring regional armies, modernizing railroads, factories, arsenals, trying to boost industrial output.
And didn't she make some controversial moves regarding who she put in power?
Yes, absolutely. This is a really significant point. She started entrusting powerful military units like Zhang Guofan's Xiang army and appointing Han Chinese officials as governors down south. This was a major shift away from traditional Manchu dominance.
Must have caused some nervousness at court.
Oh, definitely raised alarm bells, big time.
She also had this learn from foreigners policy, right? Opening schools, sending students abroad.
Yeah, in 1862, she decreed the opening of the Tongwenguan, a foreign language school in Beijing, and she even sent groups of young boys to study in the U.S.
That seems incredibly forward-thinking for that time. Kind of clashes with the Wicked Witch image.
It does, but it also shows just how difficult it was leading this traditional empire through such rapid change. That policy hit roadblocks pretty quickly.
Like what?
Well, there was this attempt to buy British warships. They arrived staffed by British sailors, which caused outrage. The deal fell through.
Okay.
And Cixi herself, she had her own conservative streaks. Initially, she supposedly banned railway construction, worried it would disturb the emperor's tombs.
Right, the feng shui concerns.
Exactly. And there's that famous story about her refusing to ride in a motor car because the driver couldn't kneel or bow while driving.
Huh. Can't have that.
But interestingly, while she pushed for study abroad, she later got worried about the liberal ideas the students brought back. So she actually stopped the foreign study policy in 1881. It's this really fascinating mix of progressive moves and conservative caution.
So moving forward in time, her relationships with the emperors she was supposed to be serving, they got pretty complicated. Let's talk about Tongzhi first.
Right. Her son, he turned 17 in 1872, got married to Lady Erut.
A choice favored by Cixin, the other Empress Dowager, but not Cixi.
Exactly. And that caused a lot of friction, partly because Erut's family was connected to a rival of Cixi's. And Cixi apparently had superstitions about Erut's zodiac sign.
Petty court politics, almost.
Yeah, but with real consequences. Cixi's disapproval was intense. Sources say she actually spied on the couple.
Spied on them.
Yes. And eventually ordered them to separate, which is widely thought to have contributed to Tongzhi becoming ill-tempered and supposedly frequenting brothels in Beijing.
Despite the rigorous education Cixi picked for him.
Yeah, he showed very little interest in learning, apparently couldn't even read full sentences properly by age 16.
So was her intense control about her own ambition, or was she genuinely frustrated with him?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Hard to say for sure. Maybe a bit of both.
And when he finally got personal rule in 1873...
he proved pretty incompetent, famously ordered the super expensive rebuilding of the Summer Palace.
which led to clashes with officials.
Big clashes with Prince Gong and others. Then, in 1875, Tongzhi died. Officially, smallpox. But rumors persisted about syphilis.
And his wife died soon after, too.
Yeah, Lady Erut died shortly after him. While historians generally lean towards smallpox for Tongzhi, there was definitely this general suspicion around their deaths. Another layer to Cixi's story.
And his death created a huge problem, right? No male heir.
A massive succession crisis. Unprecedented.
How did Cixi solve it?
By installing her nephew, Zaishen, he was only 4, son of her sister, and Prince Shun. This completely defied traditional succession laws.
And he became the Guangxu Emperor.
Right, and interestingly, he was apparently forced to call Cixi dear father.
Dear father.
To sort of reinforce her paternal authority, even though she was female, and secure her ongoing influence over him.
Wow. Then in 1881, the other Empress Dowager, Cixi, died suddenly,
Yes. Stroke is the generally accepted cause, though of course rumors of poisoning flew around targeting Cixi, but most historians doubt that.
leaving Cixi as the sole regent.
Sole regent. And she tightened her grip, removed Prince Gong from the Grand Council in 85, put in the more pliable Prince Chun.
Okay, this brings us to a really contentious point about her reputation. The Navy.
Yes, the Beiyang Fleet. And the Sino-Japanese War.
The common story is that Cixi embezzled Navy funds, right?
Yep.
Using the money for the summer palace, symbolized by that marble boat.
Right, and that this embezzlement led directly to the fleet's defeat in 1894 against Japan, a catastrophic loss for China.
But there's another side to that story.
There is. Revisionist historians argue it's more complex. They suggest the defeat might have been more due to Guangxu, the emperor, lacking interest in military stuff, and his advisor, Wing Tang, actually cutting funds to deal with natural disasters, not Cixi taking it for palaces.
So scapegoating Cixi might be too simplistic.
It could be. It definitely forces you to look harder at who controlled the purse strings and who made the strategic decisions. It's not just about a fancy marble boat.
Okay, let's move into the turn of the century. Even more turmoil. After that humiliating defeat to Japan, Guangxu tried to take charge, didn't he?
Yes, the 100 Days Reform in 1898, he was influenced by these reformers, Kang Yue and Liang Qichao.
And they wanted sweeping changes, like Western-style reforms.
Exactly. Political, legal, social changes. Aiming for something like a constitutional monarchy, big stuff.
But Cixi stepped in.
Decisively. She was worried it was too much, too fast, or maybe saw it as a threat to her own power. She put Guangxu under virtual house arrest.
And executed reformers.
6 prominent ones, publicly executed. A clear message.
But there's a controversial claim here too, right? From Young Chang.
Yes, based on apparently newly discovered archives, Chang argues that Kang Yue wasn't just a reformer, but was actually scheming against Cixi, even planning assassination attempts.
So not just a conservative empress versus a progressive emperor. Maybe a real power struggle with threats on both sides.
It suggests a much more dangerous game was being played, yeah.
This period then explodes into the Boxer Rebellion in 1900.
Right. The Righteous and Harmonious Fists, the Boxers, started out anti-Manchu apparently, but then turned fiercely anti-foreigner around 1898. Came out of Shandong province.
And Cixi's role?
She secretly supported them. Seems she hoped they could, drive out the foreigners.
Risky gamble.
Hugely risky. It culminated in her formally declaring war on the Western powers.
Which led to disaster.
Total disaster. The Boxers attacked foreigners, Chinese Christians, besieged the legations in Beijing. Then the Eight-Nation Alliance invaded.
Forcing Cixi and Guangxu to flee the capital.
Yeah, they fled to Xi'an. Though Cixi apparently remained defiant, saying something like, "If we must perish, why not fight to the death?"
But they didn't perish. They signed the Boxer Protocol.
A very harsh treaty. Huge fines imposed on China, trade treaties changed to favor the West, foreign troops allowed to be stationed in Beijing. Crushing terms.
But there was that interesting side note about the U.S. indemnity share.
Right. The U.S. used its portion of the money to fund Tsinghua University, an unexpected outcome.
Okay, here's where Cixi's story gets really fascinating, especially for how we remember her. After the Boxer disaster, she changes course. Radically.
It's quite stunning, actually. She returns to Beijing in 1902 and basically starts implementing reforms that were even more radical than the ones she'd crushed back in 1898.
More radical? Like what?
Abolishing the imperial examination system in 1905. I mean, that was the bedrock of Chinese bureaucracy for centuries.
Oh, okay.
Modernizing law, education, government structure, outlawing torture methods like slicing, banning opium smoking. She even promised a constitution and representative government eventually.
That's a massive shift.
It is, and what's maybe even more groundbreaking were her social reforms, especially for women.
What did you do there?
She abolished foot binding, that horrendous centuries-old custom.
Finally.
And she actively encouraged modern education for women, even allowed them to study abroad, reversing her earlier stance.
It's really hard to square that with the Wicked Witch narrative, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests incredible pragmatism, maybe adaptation for survival, or maybe a genuine change of heart after the Boxer failure. Hard to know her motives, but the actions are undeniable.
And she also started working on her image, right? Internationally.
Yeah, she realized that after the Boxer's humiliation, she needed some PR, both internal and external.
So less behind the curtain, more public-facing.
Exactly. She started inviting wives of foreign diplomats to tea, hosting garden parties, trying to cultivate a different impression.
And the portraits.
Yes. She commissioned an American artist, Catherine Carl, in 1903 for a portrait for the St. Louis World's Fair. It was later given to Teddy Roosevelt.
And another artist.
Hubert Voss, Dutch-American, in 1905. What's interesting there is that Cixi apparently told him to paint her looking young and kind, idealized.
Damage control?
Pretty much. But Voss later, apparently without permission, painted a second realistic portrait in 1906.
What was that one like?
Showed her as much sterner, clearly powerful, with a dragon motif. That one actually won a medal in Paris. That's at Harvard now.
So she was trying to control her image, but reality sometimes snuck out.
Seems like it. She also used photography, commissioning Yu Enling for these staged photo series between 1903 and 1905, very carefully designed to project imperial authority and maybe a bit of benevolence, too.
Did the charm offensive work with foreigners?
To some extent, yes. Her interactions, like giving gifts precious jade to Sarah Conger, the U.S. ambassador's wife, definitely helped soften her image in the foreign press. She started being portrayed more as China's woman ruler, Americanizing her empire.
Quite the turnaround.
Shows she understood soft power even then.
Okay, so we reach the end of her life. Cixi dies on November 15th, 1908.
Right. Just one day after the Guangxu Emperor died.
The timing is suspicious.
Extremely. And before she died, she'd installed the next emperor, the 2-year-old Puyi, the last emperor.
But Guangxu's death, that wasn't natural, was it?
Well, for years it was debated, but forensic tests done in 2008, relatively recently.
What did they find?
Acute arsenic poisoning. Like 2,000 times the normal level in his remains.
Whoa. So murder.
Pretty conclusively, yeah. Which leads straight to the speculation that Cixi, knowing she herself was dying,
Ordered him poisoned.
to stop him from potentially reversing her policies or taking revenge when she was gone.
A final ruthless move.
If true, yes, it really underscores the brutal reality of those power struggles.
And her own end. Her tomb.
She had this incredibly opulent tomb built in the Eastern Qing necropolis, but it didn't rest in peace for long.
What happened?
In 1928, a warlord, Sun Dianying, plundered it, desecrated her corpse, apparently stole priceless jewels, including this legendary massive pearl that was supposedly placed in her mouth.
A really grim end.
Yeah, quite ignominious for someone who wielded so much power for so long.
So, summing it all up, her legacy, still fiercely debated.
Absolutely. The traditional narrative, often fueled by biased sources like Edmund Backhouse, whose book was later found to be based on forgeries,
Right.
and also by traditional Chinese historians who just weren't keen on powerful women. That narrative paints her as this cruel and greedy tyrant, a ruthless despot.
Blaming her for everything. The Navy's defeat, the dynasty's decline.
Pretty much laying it all at her feet. The embezzlement claims fit right into that. It's a very strong narrative of failure and personal corruption.
But then you have this strong counter-narrative, the revisionist view.
Exactly. Scholars like Sterling Seagrave, Byung Chang, Su Fancheng, they argue she was much more complex. A capable figure, often scapegoated for deep-seated problems that were probably beyond any single person's control.
What achievements do they point to?
Well, they highlight things like she doubled China's annual revenue during her time. She supported building a modern navy, whatever the funding arguments. She introduced railways, steamships, fostered a period of relative peace internally for a while. Some argue her reign was actually surprisingly tolerant, with more free speech and press than you might expect. She abolished torture, created a national currency, even asked Britain to stop exporting opium.
That's a very different picture.
Completely different. It forces you to think about who tells the story and why. Whose interests does each narrative serve?
So maybe she was, as one source said, this spirited young woman trapped in a losing proposition.
Could be. Presiding over the decline of a bankrupt dynasty, facing impossible pressures.
Yet the revisionists might say she was also maybe the most capable ruler China could have had at that specific chaotic time.
That's the argument, that she wasn't just managing decline, but actually launched modern China with those later reforms, drove critical changes socially and politically.
It's just such a contradiction, trying to modernize this vast ancient empire while desperately clinging to power herself in a world that was just changing incredibly fast around her.
It really is a compelling, deeply contradictory figure. So given all these conflicting sources and views, what stands out most to you about her reign? How does her story maybe challenge our assumptions about leadership or gender roles in power, or how progress even happens during massive upheaval. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. A powerful thought to leave you all with. Thank you for diving deep with us today into the incredible and, yes, very contradictory life of Empress Dowager Cixi.